Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you're tuning in from. First of all, I want us to take a minute of silence in the honor of Rebecca Anyuan, who was killed in June this year by her own husband and the father of her three children. For those of you who will not know, Rebecca was like a sister to me. Her and myself shared a lot, and that's because, and unfortunately, and let me say this, the perpetrator who killed Rebecca Killer is someone I've known for a very long time. He was, or he is my ex-husband, very good friend. Um, those of you who grew up in Nairobi will understand where this is coming from. So this session today is in the honor of Rebecca, and I wish that it ends with Rebecca, and that's why I'm sharing my story today. So as I go along, please do not use this session to sympathize with me. At the moment, I am okay. I am in a state whereby I want to share my story with the whole world, not to get your sympathy, but I want to bring an experience home to show that these are not just in the paper, or these are not just figures being shared, or these are not just stories being concocted, but these are real lives being affected. And so if you are here to sympathize with me, don't. I'm actually sympathizing with those who are still trapped in such kind of marriages. So to begin with, I think I will be sharing my personal experience. So this is not anyone else's experience. This is my experience shared by myself. So I will actually divide my session into a number of parts. The part one, I will introduce myself, who I am, basically for those who don't know me. And then I will dive in to tell you briefly of how my marriage life was. And then I will dwell more only on the night that I left and I flee my house, because that will be the focus of this discussion. And then briefly, I will hint to you about the divorce process, how it went, and then how the post-divorce is going right now. And then I'll give my concluding remarks, including why this session was, what is the motive behind this session. So just to start again, my name is Viola Riak. For those who don't know me, I'm a feminist, a proud feminist from South Sudan. Currently, I am the gender analyst for United Nations Population Fund. So I work a lot on gender-based violence prevention and response. And I'm a very passionate on issues of human rights, particularly women and girls' rights. For me, and the father of my children, my ex-husband, I have known him since 2001. Most of you will not believe this, but I have known him now for over 20 years. And I met him in 2001 in Nairobi, Kenya. By that time, I was 17 years old of age. By 2003, I actually got pregnant with my first child. Now, what most of you will not know is that we were actually separated for a very long time. When I got pregnant, he left me 6 months pregnant with Diana. And you can check my social media. Diana is my older daughter. Currently, she's 18 years of age. So I got pregnant in 2003. Towards the end, in June 2004, the father left for a settlement in the US. He left me 6 months pregnant by that time. Now, from 2003 2004, when he left in June, he only came back in February 2010. And during that period, Diana was born now in June 2004. By the time the father came back, Diana was almost 6 years of age. And that period, the marriage was really broken down because of the distant relationship and so many other problems that emerge when people were not together. Now, when he came back, there was a lot of pressure from my own family, from his own family. Remember, there's about 6 years gap in between because of him being away. And then there was a daughter whom I dearly love that was in between us. And again, then there was also family members who insisted that the two of us should come together. Me and my ex are from the same community. We come from both Twitch Mayadit community, just the difference is Payam. I come from Turale and he come from Urok, Payam. And so given that relationship, and he's not somebody who's new to me, we have intermarriage with that family. And I have some of my aunties actually who are his either aunties or wives to his relatives. So because of pressure and the heart of forgiveness, we decided to put let bygone be bygone. And in October 2010, we were officially married in a traditional ceremony that was conducted in Turale. If I can recall the date, it was on the 30th of October 2010. That time I was in South Africa. So technically we officially started living together as a family or as married couple in 2011. Now, I just want to pause and say that when we were dating, there were a number of signs that I neglected. Again, you could blame it to me being naive and being a child by that time. In terms of age, he's actually older than me of about 10 to 11 years. These are age assessments, so it's estimated that he was born 1975 and me being born 1984. So there's about 10 years gap. He's older than me 10 years. So after our marriage was done in 2010, and I officially came back from South Africa after completing my master's, we started living together as a husband in 2011. I was blessed with my second daughter. Her name is Achol in 2013. And then my third born was born in December 2017. So officially, we have 3 children together as a couple from the marriage that failed. And these are 2 daughters and 1 son. Now, my next session now will talk about my marriage, and I'm looking at period between 2011 to 2021 when I flee my home. It has been 10 years, and again, in the spirit of being honest, I have lived in an abusive marriage for the 10 years that this marriage lasted. And it was a couple, not just even one type of violence. It was physical violence. It was coupled with emotional violence. Physical violence, I have been abused several times, being hit, being kicked, being beaten by teeth, and so many things. Emotional abuse, and let me say this. There were in the number of time that both of us were in Juba, and we could go like 4 to 6 months, and I haven't seen my husband. I haven't seen my husband because he chose not to come home. And yet I'm in his house with his family, with his relatives, and he's living in a hotel. And I stayed at home. And he could only communicate probably to send the money for the food. And the last few years, he would not even come home. He would send maybe a driver to bring the money for food at home. The third other types of violence that I also experienced was economic violence. In 2014, after the crisis, and I settled my kids in Kampala, and I came back, I was literally compelled to resign from my job. The excuse was that the two of us cannot be in Juba, and now that the children are in Kampala, one of us has to let go of the job. And in this case, it was me, because I was the mother, and I have just given birth. My daughter, my second daughter, was about 3 months when the crisis of 2013 happened. As I said, I'm not going to dwell on so many occasions. I just narrated that the marriage was coupled of 3 types of violence. One, physical violence. The other one was emotional violence. And the third was the economic violence. The focus of this session will be to take you through on 3 different occasions where my husband has literally shot guns because of his anger. And this anger was generated because of misunderstanding. It could be one thing or another. I'm not going to bore you with all that story. But as the poster said, it is true that this session will talk about the 3 occasions where he shot the gun. Now, I'm not going to talk about how many times I've been put at the gunpoint and been threatened and the gun was not shot. No, I'm only going to talk about the 3 occasions where he literally shot the gun, and because the anger was driven of our misunderstanding. The first gunshot was shot in 2014. I had just come back from Kampala after settling my children there after the 2013 crisis. And when I came back, we were living in Gudele, Block 9, just near PT Oil, for those of you who are in Juba. After settling my children in Kampala, I had to come back because that time I was a working mother. When I came back, even before I left, before the crisis, my husband was not home. So he was staying in a hotel. And so I flee the kids. I came back. When I came back, I found him in a hotel, and he said, okay, look, Viola, let's stay together. Now that the kids are not there, my house in Gudele was occupied by his cousins. So he said, children are not there and I'm not in the house. Let's stay together. And we stayed at Airport Plaza Hotel. I think we stayed for about 2 months. And those 2 months, I could go to Kampala almost on a weekly basis to go and see my children. On every weekend, I am in Kampala visiting children and coming back and making sure that they're settling well. My second daughter was 4 months, so you could understand how it was emotionally draining at the same time. Now, on this very occasion, whereby my husband got very angry, and I came back to the room, and I was lying in the bed, because what is really unique about this is that when he's very angry, I can't talk back. Because I knew if I talk back, that's when I'm actually going to meet the unknown. So I'm usually afraid to confront him when he's very angry. So on that very occasion, he was angry. He wanted to talk. I refused to talk. And I just went to bed and I lied down. He talked, and when he could not take it, when he would not get anything from me, he actually literally shot the gun. And you will be surprised where the gun landed. My dear viewers, the gun landed on the same bed that I was lying on. And luckily I survived. It didn't really land on me. It landed on the mattress. And the mattress was a spring mattress, very heavy mattress. So the sound of it on the same bed is what almost killed me. And I was there, like trembling. I could not comprehend what just happened. I could not believe that this one person that I love dearly has actually just shot a gun and has actually just missed me by a chance. And I think it was God's grace. Now, when the hotel, because the sound was, and this is not just any gun, it was not a pistol, it was an AK-47. And all the three occasions that I will explain later on were all his AK-47. When the hotel management came, so even him, he was there, shocked. Did he kill me? Am I still alive? And I ran out of breath for that moment. So when the hotel management came and knocked, he opened and he put on the light and he said, we are okay. That's the first thing he said. So they asked him what happened. And the excuse was that the gun flipped his hand. So that was the first time he shot a gun. Again, it was a very traumatizing experience. The second time he shot a gun was in 2018. My son came in December 2017, and I was in Nairobi for maternity leave. I came back at around June. And in August, on this very beautiful day, one of my friends, I'm not going to mention her name here for confidentiality. She's a very good friend of mine who happened to be a sister. It was her birthday. Somebody that is known to me, is known to him, is known to my family, is known to my children. They call her an auntie. Was celebrating her birthday. And so I went to pick my daughter. She was coming from Kampala, took her home, and I went, showered, prepared myself, and I left to Pyramid. Those days, Pyramid had just opened. So it was the inner thing that time. I left going to attend my friend birthday party. So I think I arrived around 7:30, if I'm not wrong. And by 8:30, we were having dinner. We just finished around 9:30, and I got a call. Now, my son was little, was about 8 months. All my children now were in our house in Higher Referendum. That's where we lived. I got a call, and this call came from my sister-in-law, who was living with me in my house. And she asked me, Auntie, where are you? And I said, I am in a birthday party. He said, for God's sake. Okay, so she called when she was really shaken. And in my head, I'm like, okay, anything has happened to my children. What's happening? Please tell me what is going on. My mom was also in the house. She lived with us for some time. So I asked her, I said, what's happening? What's happening? And then she said, you know what? Uncle came home. And when he was told that you have gone to the birthday party and they mentioned my friend's name, he just went literally to the room and grabbed his AK-47, and he came out and he started shooting in the air in the compound. I was shocked because ideally, like a normal human being would not behave like this. First of all, I have just gone for a birthday party. Second, if there's anything wrong with that, you would have just called me and asked me. Why would a father of 3 children, why would a father that has almost about 8 months not even be afraid the shock that was going to bring to his children? So I said, okay, let me wind up. We're about to pay the bill and I will come home. So I came back. I had stepped aside from the birthday party. I came back and then I told the audience, I said, okay, I have to go home. Something is happening in my house. I didn't tell them what was going on. Now, as I came out from Pyramid, my husband then called me and said, where are you? I told him I'm at Pyramid for a birthday party. He said, don't come to my house. You wait for me there, and today I don't want you to come to my house. I said, look, I've already gotten a call. If you have an issue, please wait for me in the house. I am coming. I started driving up. I was scared. I was scared because my old mother, who has high blood pressure and who's elderly, was there. My young child, who just came home, and my 3 children. I could not take it, like the whole shock, that the trauma that could have put my children through. All I wanted was to come home and really be assured that my children were okay. So I drove very fast. all the way from Pyramid to High Referendum. Before I reached High Referendum on the Ministry Road, he called again and asked me, where are you? I said, you know what? I am actually driving literally very fast. I am heading home. So if there's anything, please just wait for me home and let's talk about it. I came home. I just found guns, like these empty bullets, which were shot in the compound. Now, all my children were inside with my mother in the room, shocked. And I just wept. And I asked myself, what just went down? So I asked my mother, how did this start? And my mother said, you know what? Your husband just came home and he asked your older daughter, asked Diana, where's your mother? And Diana said, you know what? My mom has gone to Auntie, the lady I said, I'm not going to mention her name, but they party. And upon hearing that, he just went to his room and grabbed the gun and started shooting outside. We don't know. And then after shooting, he left. He drove off. He didn't come back. And it was very familiar thing. Sometimes when he doesn't want to come back home, he can just come and cause quarrel or cause fight, and then he will go and disappear for about 4 or 3 months and then come back later. I did not sleep that night. So in the morning, he called me. And he said, so you came back? I said, yes, I came back. What did you do last night? And he said, you know what? I am sorry. I was angry. I said, angry for what? Because I went for a birthday party. Something is not right. And it's that time that I knew that something was really, really bad, because he could not fear children, leave alone me, his own children, putting them in that time. I told him, I said, this is now becoming too much, it's out of control. And I think I would really recommend that you go for a therapy, because this anger can kill. And I'm afraid it's no longer safe for myself, and it's no longer safe for your children. He brushed it off. He said, I was just angry and it has happened. It will not happen again. And that's how we ended. Again, that was the second time he shot the gun. Now, the third time he shot the gun was on the 7th of March, 2021. Viewers, I want to say this. During that time, we had not met for about 9 or 10 months. And the reason being, he was in detention for about 6 or 7 months. I can't figure out the actual months. For something else, not related to my family affairs, so I'm not going to talk about it. And we were separated for a while. When I came back, I was up and down because now I had to take care of the kids. It was during COVID, so my working hours were flexible. I could work here, come and see him, visit him in jail, and go back to Nairobi. So we were just, the point is, we were separated for about 8 months. We did not live together as a husband and wife. When I came back from Nairobi in January, and Naomi, I can see you, I came back for your wedding in January 2021, my husband did not come home. So I remain as usual. I'm used to staying at home with his relative. Now, remember, my children are not here. They're all in Nairobi. But I live with his relative in High Referendum. And he's not there. So I stayed. He did not come home, so I did not ask. It went to a point that literally we were just separated. We were living separate lives. He was not in the house. I was in the house, and he was doing his stuff. I was just going to work and coming home, and the life continued. I don't call him. He calls, send money. I receive, and I stayed. I had just closed my mind and said, you know what? If he wants to come home, he will come home. If he doesn't want to come home, I was tired of reminding an adult that he has a responsibility, he has a wife to come home to. So I kept quiet. Now, on this very day, he came on the 6th. After staying for that 8 months, we have not met. He came on the 6th. I remember vividly, it was on a Saturday. He came, he found me home. Luckily, I was home by that time. He came at around 10 for the first time after he was released. He was released in January, but he opted also to stay out until he came on March the 6th. When he came not really happy. He was angry. He had a lot of, I think a lot of insecurities and what. So I kept quiet. I didn't say anything. There was no food for him, of course, because he was not home. So I was not ready that my husband is going to come home and therefore I have to be ready to receive him with food. So I told him, I'm sorry, I did not know that you are coming. All the food that was cooked is finished. So he said, no, it's okay. I have had dinner, but I want us to talk. I said, we have not seen each other for about 8 months. Can we talk tomorrow? He said, no, this cannot wait. Now, viewers, let me say this. He came and he was completely out of control. He was intoxicated. He was drunk. And when I see him in that mode, I have learned to shut up because I cannot argue with him. Anything I will say, it will not make sense. So I pretended and said, you know what? I want to sleep. Let's talk about it tomorrow. He continued talking. Thank God, later on, he fell asleep. That was on the 6th. Now, in the morning, I woke up, went and made him lunch. He woke up late in the afternoon, at around 12. He came, he had just showered, ate, and he said, I'm going out. I said, no, you're not going out. Last night, we had planned to talk today. So I would prefer that we talk because there are certain things he had said previous night that I didn't want to talk. And I felt like that was the right time for us to talk. He said, no, I have an appointment, so I'll come early. So you just prepare, come back home early if you're going somewhere, and then we'll come and talk. I said, fine, I listened. Now I stayed in the afternoon. I left. I went to visit my mom. My mom now was living in her house in Jebel Dinka. I drove, went to visit my mom. One thing, me and my mother were very close. So I told her, I said, Mom, for the first time since the father of my kids was released from prison, he came home last night. But the experience was not good. I told her, Mom, I'm really, 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 really worried. And then she said, what happened? I said, the guy wanted to fight. He was quarreling. He was accusing me of so many things. But luckily, he fell asleep. And that's how it went. So he said he's coming back tonight. Whether he will come back or not, I don't know. My mom said, okay, fine, you'll be okay. Came back home at around 6. I waited. My husband did not show up. So at 10, I went to my room, I showered, and I lay down. Around 10:15, 10:20, he came. And his cousin in the house opened the gate for him. And I could tell from outside because he came quarreling with those people even who opened the gate for him. And my heart knew that that quarrel would not stop. That is actually the start of how he's going to get me. So I kept quiet. I lay down low. I had already served his dinner on the dining table. So he came, he ate, and then he came to the room. And before he could even shower and join me in bed, he said, what were you saying this morning? I said, you know what? Tomorrow is the International Women's Day, and I have a long day. So why don't we do this? Why don't we sleep? And then let's make an appointment tomorrow after the event. Let's talk. And viewers, that's when things went loose. He literally attacked me when I was lying in bed. He choked my neck. He bit my arm, I think. For those of you who are my Facebook friend, you will see he literally bite me when I was lying. I was lying this side, so he bite me here. He hit my arm, so there's a very big swell. And he started really punching me in bed. I was lying down. Now his cousin, because they were alert, remember he started with them outside. They all came literally walking in and banging the door, and he opened. When his cousin opened the door, he ran for his AK-47 as usual, crock it, and he managed to push me to the wall. and he threatened me that I am going to shoot you and nobody is going to ask me. He was very confident. Nobody is going to ask him. So me lying there on a mercy, because now there's nothing else I could say. I knew in any moment I am going. So I asked him, are you sure you really want to kill me? He said, I will kill you and nobody will ask. And if anyone asks, I will be ready. Or I will actually just kill you and kill myself. Those are words I will never forget. So I will shoot your head. I will blow my head off. And the last question I asked him, and I keep remembering this, I asked, what about our 3 beautiful children? And that's when he will look at me in my face. Remember, he choked me and he pushed me to the wall with one arm. And he said, I don't care. So my husband then did not care about my life, did not care about the children that we brought to this world. And that sent a very, very heavy signal to my heart. From that moment, I prayed. I am not a very strong believer, but I know there's a universe somewhere there. And I told God, I said, God, if you are there really, and I make it alive out tonight, I promise I'm not coming back. And that was my last prayer. And I waited just for his mercy. Now his cousin were now pleading with him, please don't do this. How would it feel? One of his cousins actually was saying, if you really want to kill her, just kill me first, because we don't know what we're going to tell her family. That's when they managed to take me to the sitting room. My phones, my car keys, and everything was left in the room, and I was now in the sitting room. I could not call. One thing that I was very, very convinced is that I don't want to sleep in that house, because that gun was still crook. And the state he was in, again, he was really completely drunk. I said I was not going to sleep in that house. So I asked one of my brother-in-law and said, do you by any chance have my mom's number? I remember my mom had lived with us for about 4 years. And he said, yes, I have your mom's number. I said, let's call her. Now, viewers, by that time, it was around coming to midnight. My mom lived in Jebel Dinka. My house was in higher referendum. So I called my mom. My mom was already asleep. Everyone in Jebel Dinka were already sleeping. And I told my mom, it is me. Remember, I had met my mom during the day. So she was really alert, and she was also like very attentive. Maybe Viola is in danger. I told her, Mom, I can't sleep here. I need to leave. The father of my children came home, and he has actually threatened to kill me. And as we speak, his gun is still crooked, and I don't feel safe. So my mom came, and my mom came. My mom woke up from the deep sleep, shockingly, and said, so where are you now? I said, I'm in the sitting room, but he's in the room. I don't have my phone. I don't have my car keys. If I had my car keys, I would have driven out of the house to go to my mom in Jebel Dinka. But right now I cannot move. So my mom said, okay, I'm going to come. My mom, my uncle, my uncle's wife, and the driver had to drive all the way from Jebel Dinka at the midnight to come and pick me up from my house. And they came. They were worried, but thank God they came and found me. Now, when they came and he heard the sound of the car outside, is literally when he shot the gun. And for those of you who will want to see, he shot the gun and he shot it on the floor. And my mom was about to faint inside the car because he doesn't know what's happening inside. To her, it's like, Viola is now gone. She's been killed. My uncle, who was standing outside, saw me coming out from the sitting room. And I was walking now in the compound, going out. So he could tell them, he said, you know what? Abyong, please, that's my mom name. Mary, please control yourself. Viola is okay. I can see her. She's here. She's coming. I am seeing her. So literally, she's okay. When I came inside the car, my mom could not believe it. Now her second worry was what was that gunshot? I said, I don't know. He shot the gun. He's inside the room, but I am safe, and that's the most important thing. So I told my uncle, let's go. Because for me, any single time, maybe he can actually even just come out and start shooting all of us. So I just said, you know what? If I'm alive and I'm safe, let's go. The rest we can find out later. 5 minutes later, my brother-in-law, the one I used the phone, called my mother and said they peeped at the window. He's okay. So he shot the gun, but the gun has hit the floor of my room. But he's okay. Because my mom was also worried maybe he would have killed himself. And we went to Jebel Dinka. By the time we reached Jebel Dinka, it was about 1:30. Viewers, that's how I left my house on that fateful night. It was on the 7th of March. I was having a program for the International Women's Day. I could not do it because now I was nursing the wounds. And I was not in any state to work. I couldn't sleep the entire night. I was just awake, waiting for the morning to come. And in the morning, I had to go and follow up with the police statement. Now, when I left, I later on, in the morning, I woke up because I know where he was working. I went to their office and I reported the case. And I said, look, this is what has happened last night. My husband threatened me and he actually attempted by shooting a gun. And because he was arrested, I remember I don't want to talk about his arrest because it's something not related to this. They had literally removed him from his job. And so what the officer told me and said, Viola, your husband is no longer working with us. So what we will advise is that this, you report it as a civil case in the police. So I went to the police. I was given the warrant of arrest. I brought it back to them. Remember that day, I did not go to any International Women's Day was now something which I could not attend completely. I did not have my phone, so I could not call anyone. So the office were trying to reach out to me. They could not get me. And that's unlike me. For me, I'm a very professional woman. But they did not know what was going on. So I went, recorded my statement, brought the warrant of arrest to the office where he used to work. And where later on they said, okay, they're going to call him first and ask what happened. So in the afternoon on that very Monday, they tried to reach him. His phones were off. But likely they used some of his cousin and his friends. They got hold of him. And at 3 o'clock, he was there in the office. And they were asking him. They said, look, your wife came here. Is it true that you shot the gun? And he said, yes. And the guy was shocked because even in the morning when I went to him and I told him he actually shot the gun and he physically abused me and he threatened to kill me, they thought I was lying. And I was telling, why would I lie? None of them believed me until he came and they asked him and he said, yes, I shot the gun. And he said, why did you shoot the gun? He said, I was just trying to scare her. And second, I was drunk. So the officer, of course, is a lawyer. And he said, look, what you have done is something that I cannot stand with you. Now your wife came here in the morning. She's very angry. I don't know what is going to come with her. But whatever it is, we're going to tell her to proceed with the civil case. And you will need to surrender yourself in the police. That was it. So that's how I went and my journey now started. Now, one thing which was very clear was that at that moment, I was 100% convinced that I don't want anything to do with this marriage. I had already made my decision. So I started my police case. I got a warrant of arrest. But I decided I am not going to arrest him. For once, I knew he was also suffering from other problems. He's being arrested, illness, his health was not okay, and all that. And if I arrest him and something happened to him, it will turn to be something else. But I was convinced, whatever it is, I'm going to make sure that I really liberated myself. I did not want to be with someone who wanted me dead. I wanted to live for me, and I wanted to live for my children. So, and there was nothing else that was going to really, really make me change my mind. So talk started happening. The family came in, we are talking, okay, what happened is wrong. We are going to try. So they tried to mediate. I was told to not to really respect elders. I come from that background. So they will come, they will talk, and they said, okay, now he has apologized. You're going back to your house. And I tell them, I'm not going back. And that's when some of them, including my own family, started saying that I am thick-headed because I'm working with the UN now. I'm not listening. The guy has already apologized. So what else do you want? All we are saying is that you're going back to your house. You're not listening to us. You're disrespectful. Viewers, it is my life we're talking about. And I had to take the responsibility of it. And I knew I owe no one an apology. Even the so-called culture, they said, oh, the culture, now you're going to be a divorce. To me, it did not matter. To me, it was about my life. And I knew, I was convinced this man is going to kill me. And so everything they said, and I told them, actually, in one of the occasions, I told them, even if God himself come and kneel down here, I'll say him, thank you for saving my life on that very night, but I'm not going back again. They thought I was joking. So the process of court, when it was not really easy. I'm not going to dwell much about it, but all I will say in a summary is that it was back and forth. My lawyer was on several occasions was called by the chiefs of the two communities who did not want divorce. They were told, oh, this case, the marriage did not happen in town, so it will be done at home. But I know very well, of course, I told you earlier on what I do. Those courts do nothing. And actually for women, they will not give you justice. So I knew I am going to test how the judiciary system worked. And that's why I decided to go for a civil case. I did not pursue any criminal anything, because for me, it was not about seeing him in jail or about revenging or anything else. For me, it was just to set myself free. And likely, on the 14th, after struggling for so many months, after being threatened that they would take my children away, after being threatened, oh, you know what, we're not going to talk to you, including my own mother, who has witnessed guns being shot twice, was not convinced that this marriage was not good for me. She was still giving excuse. Oh, because, oh, this son-in-law of mine is a very good son. I love him. He's just because of, drinking and, because of peer influence. They were trying to give excuses. Many people blamed me for not listening. Many people blame me for not being culturally sensitive and not really listening to the elders. But all that did not matter. It was for my life. And if there's anything I want to do, I want to leave to take care of my children. And on the 14th of February, the High Court granted me my divorce that I wanted. And I'm very happy. And so for the viewers, the reason why I shared this, I said earlier, it was not for you to sympathize with me. I have already moved ahead. It is something in the past now. The good thing is I'm alive. And that's why I'm here to tell you my story. Unlike other women who have lost their lives because of marriage. So for that reason, I would always want to speak up and share my story. It's a very unfortunate incident, yes, but I want to use it to really create an awareness to say that these things are happening. My status, I'm not very poor and I'm not very rich. I'm a very humble working class woman. I can meet my end needs. I'm educated. So the whole notion of saying gender-based violence is affecting some certain class, GVV has no class, especially domestic violence. It has no class. It can happen to anyone. It happened to me. And you all know what I do for a living. Right now, I'm championing gender-based violence prevention and response in South Sudan, but it was not an exception. I was not an exception. In the end, I'm a woman. It can happen to anyone. Now, we really have to look at some marriage as an institution and see how is it contributing to women's health. And this year, a dear friend and a sister lost her life as a result of an intimate partner violence. And actually, this session is dedicated for her name. I have mourned her for the last 6 months. And I said, how do I wanted to come out and talk about my story. Bobby, now the perpetrator who did this, and my ex-husband are very close friends. Very, very close friends. They live together in Nairobi. They left Nairobi, they went to US and lived together in Utah. And they came back together in Utah. They came back to Juba and lived together until he met Rebecca, the late. And now she's no more. Imagine if Rebecca would have just walked away. Imagine if the environment was conducive enough for women to actually choose to walk away when their lives are being threatened. If we have right as women to divorce, I don't think Rebecca would have died. But she's gone. The reason why I'm sharing my story is that if there's any woman going through this, please know your life matters. It's better you're called a divorced woman. They call me sort of name, and you know very well, I think my life is public out there. They call me prostitute. They call me I've chose to be on the street. They call me this feminism of yours is against our culture. But I don't care because I'm alive. And that's the most important thing. I want to live to see my children graduate from university, getting married and living happy life. I want to live so that I can continue to really contribute to this country. So I think this is where I will end. Okay, maybe just briefly, how is it going right now post-divorce? So the divorce was granted on the 14th of February, so some few months ago. And one thing that was not brought out in the document, the divorce paper did not spell out anything. Remember, we have 3 children. So it did not say anything about the custody of the children. It did not say anything about, I was just granted divorce by a decree. The rest, I think maybe they allowed us to figure it out. When I asked my judge, she's a female actually, a female judge. She said, Viola, the reason why we left it like that is for you now to figure out what next. And if any of you feel like her rights are not met, then it will be a different case, because this will be another case. It will be the custody of the children. But all I want to assure you is that divorce is now granted. How you take it up from now on with the father of your children depend entirely on you. So up to now, we are okay. I don't hate him. I have already forgiven him from the bottom of my heart. Because if I get angry, it will just haunt me. I have forgiven him because also I was given justice. The only reason why he was having that power to abuse me is because I was his wife. I'm no longer his wife by the laws of this country. So if he attacks me again, that would be a different issue. It's possible, it can happen. But if he does, I think at least South Sudanese know that I've spoken. I was granted my divorce document officially. We're no longer husband and wife. What remains, however, is the fact that The two of us brought 3 beautiful children to this earth. And this is what I told him. From now on, let's put our differences aside, because already we are done. What was in between us is no longer there. But should our problems be an obstacle for our children? So far, we are co-parenting. That's what we have opted. I don't know how it will go. It's still too early to predict. But what I know is that both of us are keeping our responsibilities. He's paying school fees, and I'm managing the upkeeps of the house. And we have managed for the last 1.5 years alternate. So when he's going to Nairobi, he tells me, I'm going to Nairobi to see the children, and he goes and live with the children, and then he comes back. And then when he's back, I tell him also, I have to always tell him, because one thing I told him, I don't want you to come and find me in the house in Nairobi. And I've kept telling my relatives, I will not feel safe for me to be with him under the same roof, because I don't want to relive what I went through on the 7th of March, 2021. So that's how things are at the moment. We only talk once in a while, and whenever the calls are, we keep them strictly on matters pertaining children. I beg to stop here, viewers, and probably I'll see if there are comments or questions, so that also we can make this interactive. Thank you very much for listening. I am trying to see if there are comments, or question. Please, as I said earlier, the reason why I'm sharing this, I'm doing it in the honor of, this session is dedicated to Rebecca Anyuan. Don't feel sorry for me. Actually, let's feel sorry for those women who are still living in those circumstances. For me, I am okay. I have actually gotten a lot of help. I have been counseled. I have actually gone through sessions. I've also asked my daughter to go for some therapy as well. So at the moment, because it's the two of us, she's the only adult in the house now. And the two of us needed to be strong. I needed to be strong. And I needed her by my side to be able to push through. Don't sympathize with me. But please, 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 if you're going through the same scenario before it gets worse, it's better you are alive than dead. Thank you very much for listening. I think viewers, we have come to the end of this session. Thank you very much.